Well, good evening. You are listening to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks on Soma Fusion Media at this evening. And tonight we are going to be talking about labels, identities, and restrictions. Now, it seems today that we are using more identities, labels than ever before. It was to be defined as it could be used to define our sexuality, our gender, socio-political orientation, or just even a personality quirk. Now, in conversation with many other people that I've spoken to, the usage of identity labels seems to divide and attract a divided opinion. And some feel that self-labeling is confining and restricts many dimensions of an individual's personality. On the other hand, others are actually embracing it with the modern usage of identity labels as a liberating move in society, one that allows people to freely and confidently express a part of their individuality and connect with fellow like-minded people. Now, of course, to give you an example of this, what do you call yourself? What label do you identify with? Do you identify yourself as an artist, an author, an athlete? Having a title or a label is helpful for us to be identified and qualified. And this is especially important in certain professions because we want to be known for our expertise. And to give you a perfect example of that, John is really good with numbers, and I highly recommend him to do your taxes. Or here's another one. Sarah is an amazing fitness instructor. Can't speak English today. You'll feel sore but good after one of her classes. Same to be considered with other professions. And I'm just talking about professions, and of course there's many other confinements where we can label and restrict ourselves and identify ourselves in certain situations. But are labels beneficial externally as well as they are internally? Are we letting them define of too much who we are by covering ourselves with a mask or an identity as a mask without dealing with what we have inside of us, therefore restricting the liberty that we could be fully possessing in our lives? Now, for many of us, we often stop ourselves from exploring outside of our labels, and we limit our beliefs about ourselves and by others. And labels, just know that labels are useful for external identity, but become a liability when you let them define your internal beliefs. And we're going to go straight into what how labels and identity and collaborated together to form the personality that makes us who we are on the external factor. But on the internal factor, we'll explore a little bit more on how that can restrict the lives that we could potentially be living. And so before we delve deeper into this, I just want to let you guys know not to let your labels limit your ability to explore, to think, and express. Now, I know that Margaret wants to talk a little bit about relationship limitations and identity and labels in regards to relationships. And of course, we can go all over the place for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Actually, I'd like to go back because I'm older and say that when I was a kid, labels were very much to do with society standing. So we had class distinctions, upper class, middle class, lower working class, and the people on the street, transients, as we called them over there. And we were very driven to make sure that we fitted into one of those slots. And society expected that. And so we grew up with, I have to fit in with the rules and the regulations of whatever anyone was teaching us at those times. And now I see people who, fortunately, I'm so pleased I want to say that they don't want to be put into those categories. And I'm right. I think they're right. I think everyone's right that we are human beings, one human race. But, you know, we have other sections like a religion, you know, so we want to, you know, categorize, we're all Catholics. And my mother-in-law actually came to my husband after he was ordained and said, "Are you still a Christian?" And it was really funny because, as you know, UCC is Universal Christchurch, and she even knew that, but somehow in her mind, a spiritualist was separate from a Catholic. And of course, if we go back to those times I was talking about, it was like war against Church of England or Protestant versus Catholic, war against Hindi versus Buddhism. And you can go to any country in the world and you can see all these different setups around religion in the standards and the rules and the regulations, and they were spoken. So you really understood what people were talking about, even if you didn't like it. Well, today, and this is my biggie, and I'm bringing up right away, is short versions are down to initials. Like when I was in school, my name was Pogson, so I was Margaret Pogson. So I got labeled Minister of Parliament, something police, what was it? Metropolitan Police. All these things were thrown at me, and I hated those. And today, here we are saying, "Oh, I'm suffering with PD." Okay, there's about 5 or 6, as I said to you, like penile dysfunction or Parkinson's disease, and I'm sitting there like an idiot because I have no idea what all these initials are standing for. When I talk to people, including you, you will say certain things. You might want to give a few just now while I stop. And I'm sitting there going, huh?
Yeah, because we've moved a lot too into the world of abbreviations, and you know, I'm used to. I mean, when I'm texting someone, I might do the abbreviation that associates with the emotion, like LOL, which is laugh out loud, or something along the lines of that, or ROFL, which is rolling on the floor laughing, or something along the lines of that. Now,
Can I interject? LOL for me was lots of love. See, so I get confused immediately because I've got the history of what we did use back early beginnings of computer to what they do today. And that brings us back into, we have a separate society of people with different generations who grew up with different short versions, whatever that might be. And here they are, you know, like me, trying to understand what someone's saying. Well, LOL is obviously a very obvious one, but I wonder how these children remember all these things, these short versions. Do they actually know what the words are? Do you think they do?
Probably not. Well, especially at a young age, but by the time you get into your tween years, you already know this. It's now in the abbreviated language or shorthand, call it what you will, is very different from the shorthand, the old short form of shorthand. I mean, the kids that I know right now, I mean, they went to my kids especially, they were looking at a certificate that I got and that had calligraphy written on it. They're like, "Mummy, I can't read this." And so that's the older generation. They're used to reading cursive. They're used to reading calligraphy. I'm lucky I'm part of that generation that actually learned how to read that. But you get the newer generation, they don't know how to read that at all. They can't understand cursive. I don't know how many of them. I mean, when I went to school, we always got our pen license. That's an old thing. You got a pen license after you learned how to write cursive. But then by the time I got into the world of computers, which actually was funny enough, the first time I ever used a computer was in 1999 when I moved from a rural town into the city. And that's when I was exposed to, and it sounds like 1999, they're like, you're probably thinking like, 1999, that's not very long ago. That's really not.
Right, and when you say 1999, you know, for us, you know, it's only 20 years, but these are the mothers now that are bringing up their kids. And they've got the influence of someone my age or a bit younger maybe, and we're giving them the old style. They're trying to make sense of the new style. And I see this very often with people somewhere between 15 and 35. So there's quite a gap there where they've listened to their parents and they're running their parents' ways and means of thinking while adapting to these other new ways. And I have parents coming to me saying, I can't relate to my child. I can't understand my child. They don't understand me. We argue a lot. And, what do I do? And it is a big question mark. What do mums do? So I want to hear if there's anyone listening, watching online today, that would like to come in and tell us about some of their issues that they're dealing with.
Absolutely. And I think that there are some listeners listening on the live stream right now. If you don't want to call in, so our call-in number is 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID number 522-657-2748. I will tell you that that number is up in the description of the video. So if you didn't get what I just said, I'll just repeat it one more time. 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID number 522-657-2748. Now, if you don't want to call in because of, for whatever reason, that you're shy and you just don't want to be heard or anything like that, just write your little comment and see and join us in the conversation by writing in the comments up on Facebook, the Facebook video. I am monitoring it. So if you see me when I'm always on a show, I'm looking in a different direction, I'm just monitoring over on social media. So, and hello to you, Scott, who's out there. Sandy is with us, and so is Nancy.
Hi, everyone. One of the things, the words we put up is restrictions. And I see, for me, taking the same subject of having all just these caps as the thing we're learning is, I think that really closes the mind down. I don't think we explore so much. We don't ask questions so much. We just take it for granted, that whatever these letters are, that we know what they are. And then when you start asking someone about it, they may tell you what it means, but they can't explain it. They can't take it further.
And that's why I said, I only started learning how to use a computer in 1999. And like I said, the computer was already around before that. So I still got into the whole, the Apple Mac computers and the old style computers with the big with the big floppy drives. You had to put in Windows C, whatever it was. I can't even remember now. It's a long time ago, but I was brought up from the technology of the 80s. And then as I got through to the 90s, it was okay. Then I got into the 2000s and language started changing. The way that we do things started changing. The reason why I was mentioning about getting a pen license, because that's what I was brought up with, is the fact that we had to write full hand writing, full sentences with no abbreviations, no shorthand, no nothing. I wasn't taught how to do that. And then the technological age of texting came about, because back when phones first came out, you could only text a certain amount of characters on there. So thus starting the beginnings of shorthand for technology. And of course it translated as more people picked it up and technology started changing, especially cell phones who've now gone into, how many people out there remember a brick phone?
I don't. What was a brick phone like for those who don't know?
How many people out there remember that Facebook wasn't like it is right now? You couldn't click around all of the, especially if you were using a cell phone, you'd be scrolling down forever trying to find a Facebook post or trying to find the link to click, because cell phones weren't adapted to apps back then. And so everything took time and everything, it was a process and a half. But now you have smartphones, you have predictive text, you have everything. You've really become lazy and restricted in such a way that you really don't know how to speak English. And it's the same with writing English. You can't speak or write English through the same method. And so I think a lot of people have gotten lazy and they write LOL at the end of it. And even then, if you go into emoticons, like the hug emoticon, the little symbols that go after that show like a love heart, each one of those symbols also means something else.
Well, the picture means 1,000 words, as you know. But, you know, there's also something else I want to bring up. I remember my grandchildren coming to me and you know, they'd been given a present or something. And they tell me, this is really bad. And I'm sitting there going, what? Bad? I thought it was the best thing I bought for you, you know. And so those kids, you know, were turning the meanings of words. And you know, anyone who's updating the dictionaries, I found out that they have put in that, you know, that word bad as meaning it could be good, you know. So we've changed the words. And if I was thinking about, I was watching Marco Polo, I have to tell you that, the miniseries, it's really, really good. And the dialogue is older way of style of talking where everything is explained fully, and I was enjoying that. And that brought up to my mind that we don't have full conversations. It's like I could say, I'm going to the store to buy something, and the kids will say something like Walmart off. You know, it's like, where are you going? Where are you going? What are you going to do? And as a parent, we're now found to be interfering because they assume we understood what they said. All right, we know we're going to Walmart, but we don't know why. We don't know how long they're going to be. We don't know if they've got any money, you know, and so on and so forth. And so it leaves us older folks in a lot of doubt and fear about what's going to happen. So now we're bringing up the word restrictions. And as the seniors, we want to give those restrictions before they go out the door because we want to protect them and keep them safe. And I've also come up against a lot of mums over time, especially in foreign countries, where they're behind us, so they don't have so much technology, and they're complaining that their children have in some way disavowed them, disowned them. You're not my mother, or my father is lousy, he never tells me anything, he hides behind the paper, you know, these sort of things. And these kids are loose. They're feeling that the restrictions are unfair, that they are not understood, which is partly true if they're talking in a different way from us. And they're also feeling that they're not supported in some way, because whatever the rules are that parents are giving to the children right now, to them seems slow, too organized, too structured, too many rules and regulations, too many chores, and too much of a life thing to live with them. So what do? They run away from home. And we've got so many kids that run away from home and they're on the streets now. And I think it's very important that we address this with anyone that's interested. We can give some little bits of advice here and there if anyone calls in. But the bottom line is, if we just take the word restriction on its own, we are the world's worst individually for restricting ourselves from having more.
Yep.
So I was just going to say, like, if you're condensing the words down to letters, as we're using that as an example to start off, if you don't know how to read a book because you're only used to reading short forms, you're going to miss out on so much that is there to learn from in a book, or to you know, a story even sets the imagination going. And that, coming back to these kids again, they have a wild imagination, but they have no one nurturing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, once my dad was a good storyteller, and I've inherited that from him, thank goodness, which allows me to write novels and things. But the bottom line is, by nature, I'm very high physical, and today I'm very psychic. And today, so many of these children that are coming in are very psychic, and they're really knowing something, and they want to come up and tell their parents something. And however they tell it is from their point of view, the way they process things. And I know when with my grandchildren, I'm sitting there like listening away, paying all the attention I can. And at the end of it, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about, because they've thrown in these letters. They've talked about people I don't know. They haven't built a setup. And I think that's so important, that we understand that we don't hear setups to prepare us for what they want to talk about, so that we, as the adult, can lead them in under something more. And I think these restrictions are governments, and we'll go open wide in that in a while, but all these restrictions are limiting our personalities and our characters.
But the other thing is too, is that if we look into the generation right now, especially of parents with young children, it wasn't like what it used to be before, when there used to be a housewife at home or a homemaker looking after her children. So therefore, the mother could be better nurtured to a child's imagination and be more present in their lives in order to. I'm not talking about the other circumstances that happen in interpersonal familial situations that can be detrimental, i.e. toxicity. I'm talking about just normal situations where back then, parents used to nurture their children. They used to be able to speak and read English perfectly. They didn't have the defining labels. I mean, they're culturally speaking, from pop culture, we were influenced by a lot of things, but it wasn't a label per se. It was something that we were involved in. And you move on to now, where you don't have that same opportunity. It's now two working parents. They go to work, they come home, they're ultra tired. I've got to feed my kids, I've got to put them to bed, and then I've got to have some me time at some point, at some time in the evening, and usually it is late. Then I've got to go to bed myself. So there is I'm not going to say there is no such thing. I'm just saying that there is no time management or structure that allows a child to be nurtured in today's world, unless you are a parent that is very much equipped to take on the nurturing, because most of us really don't have any time.
And I want to say here too that because some of the parents of the younger children, say late mid-90s, last century to now, they were a part of the first throngs where mother and fathers were working. So that would bring you back into that area. And dysfunctional families and so on, all trying to make ends meet with two worldwide financial slumps and the earthquakes and all the different things that happen. I was watching, coming from Britain too, and being in America and becoming a citizen, I was watching very intently how mothers were bringing up their kids. And what I saw in the beginning was very much like England. You take the kid to preschool and, they come out with their paper doilies and whatever they've got, and look, mummy, what I made and all that, And then it was about 10, 15 years. It was probably about mid-90s that I was starting going over to Japan in those days. And of course, the Japanese make loads of creative things. So I was like, wow, how do you fold this paper and do origami or whatever it was, So I come back to the States with quite a bit of, creative sites in myself, because I like to do that. And I started to talk to people about, giving kids projects to do like that. And the teachers who were working in those kindergartens and lower schools said to me, we can't, we're ruled by the restrictions of the education authorities, and they've taken away the art, they've taken away the sports, so we're not allowed to do the things we used to do, like paper mache or something, whatever it was that we used to do. Now it's about they have to sit in a certain position, and COVID made that even worse, of course, but we're going back before that. They have to sit in a certain way. They have to wait until the teacher says what we're going to do. They're not allowed to choose like they used to. You know, teacher would say, well, what do you want to do today? Tell us a story, or can we draw or something? It's now you have to have a set out thing. Why? Partly because the kids are much more smarter at infancy, and partly because of money. Money, money, money. It's always controlling them. And these teachers here in my town, they were going out and buying at Staples all the paperwork and toys and things, whatever they wanted for them, out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
And that should never happen.
No.
And these kids don't know that they're doing that. Nobody tells them. They think it's all part of the schooling. So they take it for granted. So when the teacher gives them this coloring book or pen or whatever it is, it's like, oh, do I want that? I don't want to do coloring, you know, and there's no appreciation because they don't know what the setup is. So there's part, in my opinion, with the young ones, there's part of them thinking they know a lot because of all these condensed ways of speaking, but they're not realizing there's a whole world out there more that they're not exposed to.
No, they're not. And a very good portion of that too is not exposed to culture. And that's where a lot of people become very narrow-minded, is because they've never explored the world. They've never been given the opportunity to travel. They've never been exposed to certain socio what's the word?
What you're trying to say, interaction, I think. Sociological interaction, yeah.
Something along the lines of that. And of course, you know, COVID, of course, made a lot of things a lot more worse. There were kids that were just, they became antisocial. They picked up other behaviors and that. And so when they go back to school, they're just all over the place. And then the teachers go, oh, well, I can't handle this. But what I know is that these teachers do work very hard. They are on salaries. Most of them have to do all the little cardboard cutouts, the squares they have to do are all cut out by them. They take it home. They start doing it at home. They bring it back to school. They basically are dedicated teachers. However, it is almost it's not what would it be, an 8 till 3 o'clock job. It's not, because it can carries on in the evening. Teachers rarely, that some teachers have a life, some teachers really don't, because they're doing homework after school. And then on the education department side, the education department are also imposing the syllabus on them, which they have to update whenever they get it. So they're now, the teachers are conformed to the education department, and the teachers are conforming the children. And through the education department. So for someone like me, I do not like conventional methods of learning. I never have. I like to learn at my own pace. I'm an autodidact. And so when it comes to learning, I'm very, very unconventional.
Now, here's another example. You see, you just said autodidact. I know what that means, but I bet you there's a lot of people listening who don't even know what that word means. Why don't you explain it to them?
So I personally, and I know that this is going to come across as a label and an identity, but I am what's called a polymathic autodidact. Polymathic meaning I am, call it what you will, an expert in several different fields. But an autodidact is also someone that is self-taught. So I am not only just academically sound, but I'm also an autodidact. In other words, I'm a curious, critical thinker that likes to explore.
And I had to learn that word years ago by doing a crossword puzzle. Because my dad used to say, if you're going to speak the Queen's English, then you must learn to know the Queen's words. And so he made me do crosswords. I've asked some of the kids around here, do you do crosswords? And they look at me like I'm insane. But you know, that's such a good thing, because you've got a word across, you've got a word coming down, and you've got to think, what are these letters? And it helps you remember the words. And coming back to just initials again, they're missing these words. They're not know what they are. And of course, in medicine, they do it all the time, even with the medications. And as there are so many names that are very similar, it's very confusing. And I'm going to switch over from there into kids on the street, drugs, all these different things that they're doing. I'm just feeling more and more and more that they're doing this to hide, to get away from not knowing, because they don't want to be seen as stupid or something. So they pretend to themselves they're clever in the area of these ways they talk and learn, but they really don't know a lot. I know some of the older folks make sure their kids watch something on TV that's educational, and that's good. But generally, as you said earlier, the family is so busy working, just trying to make ends meet, to buy whatever cheap food on the way home is fast food that's not good for the kids. And here I'm going to go into the tremendous extensions of bodies that we see. And I'm not going to call them fat. I'm saying extensions of size, because they're eating food that is not conducive to the digestive system of our human bodies. It's poison. Okay. And as long as society has a structure where we import from other countries, we don't know where it's been. It's grown in soil that is different from our soil here, say in the States. So the pear might look like a pear, it may look exactly the same, but it's had different groundwater, and there's different combinations of the elements in that compared with here. So if we've grown up only eating American, and then one day mom introduces something, that's been imported and gives it to child, she wonders, what's wrong with my child? Got diarrhea the next day, and then off they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, here's some antibiotic, and more poison going into the body. And so this goes on. And then they wonder why these kids are having brain issues, because the blood isn't getting through the way it should, and their left and right hemispheres, I'm doing a you now, can't balance properly. So we've got so many children that feel they are dysfunctional and want to hide it by going off on the streets, running away from home, hiding in a book, pretending they're reading when they're not, watching video games all day long, hiding in their room. This has got to stop, because in the Aquarian age, we need communications. That's what it's all about. And as much as I'm old-fashioned and the old school and all the old things, I'm still up for read a book, draw, paint what you read in an imagination. This allows the body to explore the brain, and the body to work more function, in a good functionable way.
Well, you've got to remember too that we do live in the United States, and one thing about the United States is that a lot of individuals seek autonomy, and it's basically it's autonomy versus death. So if you don't give me what I want, then I'm gonna get angry or have a hissy fit over it. So my question here posing: do we get given so much choice and so many options that we are just literally throwing ourselves in the deep end into the world of choice, and we're being confronted with so much choice that we actually have to define ourselves by limiting ourselves at the same time, only with the beliefs that we're given. At the same time, we're also taking on those labels because of that choice.
Well, I think in some ways where families are out there, we don't want to make everybody doing it wrong. There's a lot doing it right. And I know parents that will say, you go to school, you come home, or if you are home, you're doing homeschool, and then you have your food break, and then you have your art time, or you have your gym time, and they schedule it themselves. And they also monitor what the TVs they're watching. And those parents are not necessarily well educated themselves, because they're coming from a space of, I didn't get the education that I wanted, so I couldn't go to uni. There was no money. So I had to end up being something, and they put themselves down. I never want to put anyone down, you know, but for example, I had a gentleman in England years ago, and I never forgot him. And he was bowing his head to me all the time because he spoke Cockney and I spoke pretty good Queen's English, better than I speak now. And he was like, didn't know where to sit, and I said, do sit down, you know, which was obviously my upper class thing, do sit down. So strange now. And would you like a cup of tea, you know? Well, yes, mom, you know. And he's come for a counseling session with me, and I had spent 15-20 minutes to tell him it's okay to sit back in the chair, relax, take a deep breath, and talk as much as you want, so I know what you're looking for, so I can help you. Now, today when people come, because they've known about the psychic ability, they sit down and say, okay, what are you going to tell me? It might not be what the spirit guides may want to tell them what they want to tell them, but hey, you know, pretty accurate I am, but I'm not blowing my trumpet, but I get away with that because I can do that. But there are many psychics who can't. And I want to warn people out there that if you are going to see a psychic, please go with your questions. Before you ever go, ask about their reputation, how long they've been doing it, and so on, and see if you've got someone who can, word of mouth is very good, recommend. And then go with your questions. And if you're being taught to, it's okay to interrupt. And we've got no excuse now on class or anything like that. We're all the same. So nobody's sat on a pillar. I've had people try and put me on a pillar, you know, and I go, stop it. I don't want you to do that. I'm regular Margaret, you know. And so until we learn to get rid of this class thing, and I've been all for losing it ever since I can remember toddling, because it was so snobbery and so horrible and so limited and so restricted, that's that word again, that I couldn't be the me that I wanted to be. And so what I'm saying here, parents, if you're listening to this, we want to hear how you're bringing up your kids, because some mothers might be learning and they don't know, and your advice might be helpful. Other mothers, you might be, or fathers, you might have a child that's playing up. Maybe we've got a few answers we can help with. So we're building our knowledge that we're doing this out there with people following us. So hopefully you'll spread the word too and tell people we have this show and that you come on and ask questions. Do you want to give them any info about that?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. There also Melody, I'm assuming that she's one of your Japanese followers. Could be. Anyway, Melody, hello, if you are still out listening. But like I said, for those who do want to, just repeating myself again, for those who do want to join in the conversation, please go over to the Facebook comments and say hello. We will say hello back and give you a little honorable shout out. I am monitoring it. Or if you have a question, you can always also put it in there. But if you want to call in and talk to us directly, the phone number is 929-436-2866. With the meeting ID number, you'll be prompted to enter 522-657-2748. The numbers is up in the description of the live feed that's going on right now. But I will say that for those who are interested in actually seeking out services from Margaret and I, we do offer services from healing to therapy, to psychic development. We teach courses, we do talks. All you got to do is just sign up, go over to the websites, samariseducationcenter.com, universalchristchurch.com, and easypeasysolutions.org. And or you can email us at samaris, SUMARIS UCC@gmail.com, and let us know what you're interested in hearing about on this show and what you would like to learn through the score, because there are many things that we can talk about, and we can come up with a topic every single week and promote it, and so that you guys are knowledgeable about these subjects. But we'd like to hear from you. We want to hear what kind of conversation that you want to hear about. There might be certain aspects of this topic, for instance, that you want to know about, that and you want us to talk about. So we don't know everything. We certainly don't know everything, and we certainly are not limited in any way in which we absorb the knowledge that we receive. And just like Margaret just spoke about just before, I'm also someone that is not defined, and I've come up with, just because I have titles under my name, and so does Margaret, I don't like to be known as somebody like Dr. Katie or Reverend Katie, because I'm still human at the end of the day. I'm still equal to every single one of you listeners out there. And so therefore we want to, not just me, but we want to get to know you on a personal level.
Absolutely. And, a point here is that we've worked hard through our lives to get our qualifications coming up the back street, as it were, because, when we talk about psychology, for example, when I was young, it was schizophrenic, it was paranoid, these are very simple ones, I won't go into it all. And they were still doing lobotomies in the mental hospitals when I was nursing, and giving people electric shocks. So there wasn't much in the way of information. Today, just to name a few, we have ADD, ADH, and it goes on, obsessive compulsive, OC again.
Basically what you're saying is the cluster A, B, and C personality disorders.
Yeah. And see, that's something she knows, because she studied a lot later than me. And I have to say that, no, there was no one telling me about OCD. We didn't have PSTD. It was stress. So all these things have changed.
Better correct you, there is PTSD, not PTSD.
Yeah, I said it wrong. I know, I realized. It's one of those things that I can't get my tongue around half the time, because my brain is fighting it, because I want to say the full thing, post-traumatic stress disorder, because that's the way I was brought up to talk. And that brings me back to the kids of today who are psychic. Their modeling, it's no different from every baby born throughout history. In the first 5 years, whoever we are, we were born psychic. And of course, back in the ancient days, they would go and consult the oracle as to whether their baby was going to be bright or not, and whether it be a soldier or whether they'd be a princess or whatever it was, that, because they didn't know what babies they were going to have. And now today we can even make sure the doctor makes sure it's a girl or a boy. We've gone so far in so many things. When I was nursing, they said the liver had 7 functions. Today, I think it's 24, 23, 24. So I've lost count. I watch, I study, I keep up with what younger professors are teaching, because I need to learn too. And that's a very important thing, I think, for parents listening here, is even if you're tired, if you can find a lecture for half an hour that will help you to understand parenting, or yourself, or your husband, or Tom, Dick, and Harry up the road, or Auntie Mary, whoever it is, you need to do it, because if without understanding, we're so limited. And that was the other word we were going to use, limitations, wasn't it? We are so limited if we don't learn.
And I will say too that there is many videos out there you can watch of lectures. But please, for those who are listening, we're not talking about going to YouTube and actually watching some 5-count or 5-step way of trying to decipher your husband, or ways of thinking, or how to give me 12 steps on how to deal with my child. We're not
and pay $1,000 for it.
No, you can get some of the stuff for free on.
I know.
What I'm saying is that There are quite a few platforms that will do it for free, and there are actual lectures from university professors. And so you're probably going to get more sound information if you go that route. But what I will find, what I find anyway, for those who do actually who do have a love of studying, they are more inclined to sit there, take notes, and go to these lectures, whether it be online or in person. It doesn't really matter. But then there's the other non-curious, non-critical thinkers who attend these lectures and like, okay, well, I'm going to give it a try. But then they get 5 minutes into it, they're like,
well, again, it all depends on the teacher. I'm sorry, I mentioned earlier on I'm a storyteller. And of course, I have a wealth of experiences traveling all over the world. But the bottom line is, if I say to you, well, I'm gonna do one I do with everyone. If you're Australian, shush, or if you've been to Australia, shush. Okay, I'm giving you a big clue there. But what is a wombat? Okay. Now I've asked many people that question, and that they've looked at me and said I think it's a flying little mouse. Okay, that's one example I had. And then someone said, I think it must be some kind of plant, and they were guessing by the sound of the word, right? So at that point I said, okay, I'm going to describe it to you. It's got a little pointy nose with whiskers. Okay, so what's that look like, and then I would say something like, it's the size of a large cat. It has fur on it, and so on. And as I'm building that picture, they finally know what it looks like. And I said, do you all think you know what it looked like? And then I held up a picture of actual wombat, and they go, oh, I was so right, where I put all the pieces together. Well, that example is basically how we work, how the brain works. We have a series across here in the middle part of our cortex, thousands and billions actually, of images that we've seen. For example, I'm looking at you and I'm seeing a necklace, but I'm only seeing it because I'm making a point of looking at you and studying you right now. But what if I didn't see you, that necklace on you, because I'm looking at your glasses, which nice, by the way, and so we click on the thing that where we're at in that moment, but we don't realize we've also got the photo in here. And we can rerun that photo, and we do when we get emotionally tied into a similar feeling. So let's say I was upset and I saw your necklace. I would then lock my upset energy into your necklace, and then maybe 4 days later I see someone else wearing a round sort of something necklace. I'm going to make an association and I'm going to get upset with that person when I don't even know why I'm upset with them, because I'm not really upset with them, I'm upset with myself. Most of our upset energy is our own upset energy. And kids go through that in the first 7 years over and over and over again. And if the parents don't realize and stop and say, okay, what's coming down? What's happening? What do you feel? What do you think? Instead, it's like, stop running around, stop yelling, sit down, watch TV, well, so-and-so just did such and such. Okay, everybody sit down. We're going to have a talk about this. That's what I used to do with my kids. But most parents today, it's like, take it away, put it on the shelf, shut up, sit down, be quiet. There's no explanation. What have you got to say about that? You've got young ones still.
I got young ones, but they've been taught. No, I'm a little bit of what I would say, because of my own curiosities. I'm a little bit of a nut when it comes to educating my children. I would say a little bit different. One, I got two separate different personalities between both of my boys, and they are very, very young. And of course, I have one child. It was beyond, I don't know what he is. He's beyond smart. This is a child that literally his favorite subjects at the age of 6, and it's been like that for the last 2 years now. His favorite subjects are maths and science. And the only thing that he is interested in right now, and the only thing that he directs himself to when he is not being a child, is lectures or videos on astronomy. And
yeah, but that's part of the psyche, though. I have to say that. I was I'm sorry about using me all the time, but I was a strange kid because I was psychic and nobody else was. So I was like that. I knew I was going to do what I was going to do, and I've never deviated from that pathway. Kids that come in like me with the psyche and they just know they're interested in those topics, they're on their career already.
yep.
It's just a matter of time. And there are a lot of parents, unfortunately, who recognize it, but they can't afford to support them in terms of their thinking university already. I see a lot of that in Japan too. They all think their kids are going to go to university and they're all saving away and striving away. And I'm diverting here with a thought. One of my students came to me and she wanted to do the advanced class because, my classes have 5 levels and stuff. And so she said, but the only way I can pay for it is I have to take my savings for my child who is saving, it was a few thousand by then. The child's only like 3 or 4, but I'm going to have to take that money out to pay for this class. Now, I wasn't structuring the price, the organizers did, so I had no say in that. So I turned to her and I said, I don't want you to deplete your child's class. You've already done all my other classes. Leave it with me. So I went to my organizers and I said, I want her in my class and I want her in for free. And they looked at me like, what? You can't have anybody free? That's $600 out of our pocket, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at them and I said, just take it out of my fee. Now, people didn't know that I was doing that. She came to the class and I just whispered in her ear, don't tell anybody you're not paying. Okay. And she qualified that. Today, she's one of the leading teachers in Japan for, doing what she's doing, for what she learned from me and other people, because I don't take all the credit. There were a lot of foreigners that went over there and taught classes, and this organization made sure they all got students attending. But the point is, it's the same in me as you were saying earlier with these teachers who will go home and work on everything, doing it later and so on and so forth. That was put in us from the upper class structure, working down through all those classes I mentioned earlier, to be disciplined and apply yourself and get what you need done so that it's out of the way, so you can then have pleasure time. Mm-hmm. So focus, and I don't see that today. I don't see it, and I don't see it myself anymore because I've adapted to the way things are. I'm hither and thither. It's like, what did I come in this room for? And oh, I was going to do that. Oh, I'm in the wrong room. Go back in. I love thinking I'm going insane, especially as I'm 79. But no, it's not. It's just that the world is in chaos. The way we do work is in chaos. The way we organize our lives as a family unit is in chaos because the phone keeps going. Someone calls you on Facebook. What? Who's that? I didn't expect a call. And you go and look, and sure enough, it's someone in another country who knew me years ago. Okay, I need to answer that. Now my time slot for what I was going to do has gone because someone's done that talk. It's later. And well, I have to adapt. So things get put on the back burner. And I see that a lot where people are dying to really focus on what they want to do. And it can't get done. You're smart. You've been so focused. And yet you had all those different things. We won't talk about private life, but happening in different ways. And you still kept going. You have that drive, and you've got that from my generation, your mom. But are your kids going to have that drive? How are you going to give your kids that drive to focus on what they want, no matter what the rest of the world says, and not be selfish with that part? Yeah.
At the same time too, though, with my children, though, I don't limit them in any way. I do what I need to do as a parent, but I don't limit their childhood innocence. And so that's one of the biggest keys that a lot of people, a lot of parents out there, I'm not saying all parents, but some parents limit their children by being it's one thing to be an authority, but it's another thing to take that authority to the next level. And by that, you're imposing the restrictions of a child from, trying to treat them as an adult at a very, very early age. And we see that so much in society now, that these young children are being taught or trained by adults to be adults rather than to be children. So the perfect example of my children is that I don't impose those restrictions. I don't be authoritarian with them. I allow them to have their playtime. I allow them to learn. I allow them to be curious, and I allow them the presence and the open space for them to come to me to ask questions. That is what parenting is all about. If you've got a child that's just sitting in the corner and rocking back and forth and unable to deal with themselves, let me pose a question to those parents. What are you not doing to be present in your child's life for them not to be able to proceed to come to you? And I'm not trying to define that. This is in general speak. This is not regarding, again, in acutely dysfunctional families. I'm just talking about in general.
Actually, we have to make it clear here that some parents do an awful lot to reach their child, and they're doing it in the best way they know how, and hear that, the best way they know how. And of course, that comes from their upbringing, but it also comes from the DNA and the RNA, because the DNA is inherited and the RNA is picked up along life as we go along. So when I talk to mums and dads about their children, I've had some really serious issues with children over the years. I've always had to say to them, first of all, let's put down your rationale. Let's put down your reasoning. Let's put down your excuses. Let's just go to the baby itself. When you birthed this baby, what were you like while you were carrying this baby? Oh, we had an arranged marriage. Or, oh, we were fighting all the time. Oh, it was an accident. We didn't expect it, but we it was good. Whatever, and they go through all this stuff. And I say, okay, during that time, your insecurities, your fears, your anxieties were being absorbed by the baby in the womb. Okay? Huh? Because everyone thinks a baby comes out little innocent me. Okay? But hey, we've got our past lives in here. We've got our total spiritual awareness in here. And without all of these connections throughout eternity, if you like, think of it that way, we wouldn't exist. So every child born is not stupid, and yet we categorize them. You can't see your ABC by 3 years old? Well, you're slow. Okay, we can't do that to these children anymore, because they're coming in with, as you said, your child is interested in those sciences. And so he already knows where it's going to go, just as I was interested in the psyche, and I've gone full board all the way with it. He'll go all the way with it. And so if you have a child, I had a lot of times explaining this in Japan too. Every mother would come and say, I want them in uni, I want them to have this, they've got to learn English, they've got to do this. These kids are 3 years old, 4 years old, in kindergarten. And they've got foreigners there who speak to them all day in English, which helps them learn English. And they're all given projects, what to do, working projects. It's they're very serious. And then they come to me and say, well, my child's failing. He's getting an F, an F, an F, an F. And so I asked, what are you having them focus on in these kindergarten schools? Because they could choose what they were. Oh, math. Oh, kanji, whatever it was. Where's the art? Where's the macrame? Whatever it was, that they were doing. Oh, again, same as here. It's not important, because one day, and this is the part I hated, they will grow up, they will earn a fortune, and I can rest at home. And they will have babies and I'll look after their babies. And it'll be sweet nothings and we'll have a wonderful time. And they believe that. Now, the situation is they're living with their mother and father. They're working, both are working, say, running a restaurant, morning, noon, and night. They start at 6 in the morning, they get home to 11 at night. Grandma's put the babies in bed, wherever they are. She's exhausted because they've been running around doing whatever like kids of today do. They're not well behaved like old Japanese ones who would just do this and bite their tongue. They're answering back, you know. They're in chaos. And I have to sit down and say, why are you running that business? Well, it was my father's. I have to keep it going. Tradition. Okay. There are many, many countries using this example where tradition controls religion, philosophy, it limits them, it restricts them, and they moan and groan that the Western world isn't helping, or that they are helping but not helping enough. They want to be saved, but they're not saving themselves. I was actually listening, I was disgusted with this news, and I'm going to share it here because it's important. I was listening to a program where they were telling us that countries who have the inoculations or injections, whatever you want to call them, for the COVID-19 are not sharing the recipes with the countries who could be using their scientists to make it over there for them so they can all get inoculated or vaccinated or whatever we call this thing, and produce it themselves. Mm-hmm. Why is our pharmaceutical people holding on to it and saying we're producing it as fast as we can? Why aren't they sharing the recipes, whatever you call it? Because of money. These third world countries need us to get our pharmaceutical people to shut their mouths about money, open up their mouths about helping the world, and teach the world that we are a loving nation. Because right now, I see us as a controlling nation. What do you think? I'm a loyal citizen, but I don't think we're in harmony.
Nowhere's in harmony. The only harmony that we can create is for ourselves, and what we do for ourselves can create a better humanity.
And the bottom line is that even if we want to be in harmony with ourselves, I mean, for example, I wanted to go and edit book 2, Regenesis, and I wanted to make a list of all my classes and courses so I can give them to you later. And I wanted to edit my book. Guess what I ended up doing? Watching TV, Marco Polo, as I told you, because it was so gripping. Did I feel guilty? Yes, because I'm self-imposing myself with my own guilt that I didn't do what I planned to do. Now, where did I learn guilt? When I was a little girl and someone was standing over me, and I still remember it, waving a stick at me. I don't know what the conversation was about, but I remember her saying, you didn't apply yourself.
Yeah.
And I got a D or something. And I know what the stick was. It was a ruler. They had permission to slap our hands in those days with a ruler.
Yeah, the good old days of corporal punishment in education.
But you see, that was cruel. But on the other side of the fence, to sit a child down and write out, I was mean to my friend behind me 100 times, that was a good lesson. Till someone showed me how to get a rubber band and put three pencils together, and I could do 3 lines at once. Then what did I do? I felt guilty because I wasn't doing the job properly. Yeah. We are embedded with conflict, all of us. Mm-hmm. So when you think about conflict, I can and I can't, I will and I won't, I shall and I shan't, it's up and it's down, it's in and it's out. That was one of the major lessons that spirit guides were teaching me at 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And I used to walk around looking at it, and people used to say, I have to go and do something. And I opened my big mouth at that age and say, no, you don't have to. You could do something else. And they look at me. I said, well, you can and you can't. And I'd run off. You know, and today I think people need to hear that they're in that conflict where they're running around like a chicken's head cut off, you know, running around trying to do 101 things, and the phone goes and you get separated, like I mentioned in the beginning. I'm realizing just today more and more that I need to discipline myself to do what I need to do, what I want to do in the way that is done thoroughly, properly, not hapdash, not half do it and do half tomorrow, but sit and finish something till it's finished, you know. That was how I was taught, and I'm missing that terribly.
Mm-hmm.
Time.
Well, that's what I just mentioned before about time. We just are so limited on time that we are stopped from thinking for ourselves. Because as a result of the labeling and identifying and the restriction that comes with it, it actually, believe it or not, psychologically, it actually makes us start disliking other people for absolutely no reason. We hold prejudice to other people for absolutely no reason, for their choices and their actions, which have nothing to do with us.
Exactly. And the judgment is rampant. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, because we are trained to judge. Is this right? Is this wrong? Okay. And relative to whether it's right or not, you know, I've had people come to me and say, you know, I really know this is right, but I don't know how to start. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do because my upbringing didn't provide any scenarios. You know? And there's a lot of people, for example, on the other side of the coin, I saw this in England and I now see it here, is, you know, back in the days when the workers were in factories and so on, if you ask, they complained because the unions were just starting to come up in those days. And they would complain they're being abused or whatever, you know, and I'd say to them, young as I was, you know, I'd always ask questions. And I say to them, why don't you change your job? I can't do anything else. That was the response. This is what I do. My father was in the gas, you know, building, whatever it was, doing gas work. So I went in at 15. I copied what Dad did. Okay. Well, today we don't have to have that because we can grow beyond whatever it is. And many children don't, you know, we were saying some know what they're doing, like your son, but there are many who have no idea what they want to do, and they leave school and they're twiddling their thumbs and they try a dress shop and they don't like that, and then they'll try somebody's office doing something like that, you know, don't like that, and they come to me for reading because they want to know what they should be doing. And I have to channel that and give them an understanding that they blew their education. They were hanging around with the other kids. They were smoking pot or something around the back of the school, you know, whatever. And they didn't think education was important. Education is vital to the world, not just our country or our children, but the world's children. And part of that must be, you know, obviously the alphabets of their language, whatever it is, whatever they call it, their math, they must have a working knowledge of history. They must have a working knowledge, at least, where I was lousy at geography, but I'm putting it in there because today you're on your computer and suddenly you get a message from, I don't know, some town in some country you've never heard of. And thank God for a computer, I can go search it and find it, because I was lousy at geography. I draw wonderful maps and couldn't put any towns on it. But the bottom line is for the kids of today, by the time they're 10, 11, 12, like me, I knew I was going to be a nurse or a doctor. Okay. These kids know what they want to do. My grandchildren are already telling me what they want to do. Okay, they may change their mind a few times.
I will say, though, too, that some of these kids, by the time they're in their tween years, have already had a career superimposed on them because you know, that age old question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you
Yeah.
want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be a nurse? You're giving three different choices, and now you're making that child conform to those three choices like a multiple choice question. And of course, by the time 2 years later, you're going to ask them the same question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a nurse. And you don't reflect about where that answer actually came from. Is it something that they actually want to be, or is it something that you subconsciously, maybe not even knowing about what you just did, you implanted that in your own child to make them think that they want to be a nurse? And so by the time they get into their adulthood, and this happens many, many times over, is that children who grow up to be adults don't get into the careers that they want because their mummy and daddy told them to. And it all comes with that subconscious implant.
Yeah, I could give you 1,000 cases of those kinds of things, especially in the countries where the religions really control them, and heard that story and had those now young people working in the business, whether it's a family business or their own business or someone else's business, whatever it is, in some way they come to me and they say, I'm in this business, I wanted to be from child, but I hate it. Okay. And how can I get out of it? And I can honestly say in some cases that I had to not take them out of the business they were in, but help them look at it in a different way. So, for example, I had someone who was working in a design company, artwork. She was very, very good. But she was treated badly in the environment. She was not appreciated for her talent, these kinds of things. And so I sat with her and I said, okay, have you ever thought of owning your own business? Oh, I couldn't do that. I don't know what to do, and so on. So what followed was I gave her all of the steps, as to what to do in order to create her own business. Her last excuse was, my parents will never support me. And I said, you're not going to go to your parents for money to do this. You're going to raise it yourself. Oh, I can't do that. So then I told her the steps to do to raise the money. Today, she's very well off.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing is that we lack the resources, we lack the knowledge, we lack the resiliency to get up and try again. It's never, and you are never too young or old to start or try, start anew or try something new in order to fulfill your life.
I'm going to take you on another slant here because of limitations, restrictions. I'm going to go into the forces. Our young men, women, get emotional, who have given their lives, and those who've returned. They were dedicated to protecting the world, whether it was World War I, II, Vietnam, and so on. Anywhere in the world, there's wars going on all over the world. What we have to look at is understanding that when you come back off a front of some kind, I mean, even if you were a doctor and you're going over to a third world country and doing your 3 months, kind of things, it's an effect. I went to India. That was a definite effect for me, to see the way people lived in a different way. Same with Egypt, and Peru. It's different. You cannot go there with an American or an English idea and talk to them because they don't think the same way we think. So I'm coming back to understanding that all these soldiers, all these people who go overseas, they are affected by what they see. Now, obviously, war is terrible and they sent thousands of dead bodies and so on. But wherever they go, their whole processing of thinking is so much trauma, and watching so many people who are traumatized, who they're trying to help, has such a strong effect on them that they're going to come back with absolute exhaustion. But that's all they know what to do. So how can they do something else? And I've spent a lot of time working with soldiers over the years, and with doctors and people gone abroad, helping them to understand that what you do physically can be done in another way mentally. So, for example, I know of two soldiers that came back that worked with me, and now they're counselors. Whereas they thought they had to go into one, thought you had to become a motorbike mechanic, because that's what he was doing in the army. He was fixing all the bikes so they could get from point A to point B. And then the other one, he was a doctor, and now he's doing alternative medicine. So you see, they've moved over, they found another journey. And I think it's very important that I use Winston Churchill as an example, who had 5 clear cycles in his life, starting off with India, then going into Parliament, then becoming a Prime Minister, then stepping down and being brought back again as a war Prime Minister, and then as an artist. We all have the ability to change what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So how many people are listening that have got an example of that? Is there anyone listening that would like to tell us how they got over their post-traumatic stress disorder or dealing with their kids? We never seem to get anyone calling in. I guess they're afraid of us.
Do a shout out there for those veterans who are out there. Thank you for your service, and those ones who have lost. We do pray for you. But in essence of saying that, you know, when somebody's been through a lot of trauma, especially for someone like me who does actually suffer from PTSD, but it's not severe like other forms of PTSD that are out there. Mine comes from childhood trauma, which has escalated into adulthood. And so there are different forms of PTSD that can be affect a person. But in my circumstances, what I will say is that sometimes PTSD can be lifelong. You don't really ever get rid of it. It is something that you have to work on every single day. So, but in order for you to settle yourself back into, you know, another career, or especially someone who's coming out of a war or doing their tour of duty, and they are now discharged from the military. Yes, they do go through a lot of questioning, but another thing is that they know that they have to become stable, but they also know that they're going to have not all, but some are affected by mental health. And so by treating the mental health, then once that starts to settle down a little bit and the correct therapy is sought after, then you can make the conscious decision or seek the clarity that is guided from within you in order to make the choices and where you feel happy in life to proceed. Because there are so many people out there. I'm not just talking about those ex-military personnel, but also just life in general. And so yeah, no, it's okay. Margaret has somewhere to be, so we're just keeping an eye on the time. But there are so many people out there that just really don't know where to go, because like I said, you've got one group of people that are so traumatized by let's just say life in general, not just the circumstances, but life in general, that don't know how to proceed because they don't know how to seek the help. They don't know how
what am I doing? I'm moved. Okay. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Good.
And so, but then you get the other group of people that just they lackluster. They have to figure out something real quick, and they get themselves into school. They get themselves into a job, but it's really only for the month-to-month paycheck because they need to survive. And so they've already started off unhappy because it's a necessity rather than an actual passion or a passion unfulfilled. And then you get the other people that really haven't worked through their trauma, but they know they have to in order to seek that clarity that they need to become happy.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'm going to interject with you here, because it's easy to say those two aspects, but really there's so many variations on the theme to it, because each individual, if you got a bunch of soldiers walking down and they're all looking around like this, they're seeing what they want to see, and they're not seeing what each one of them is seeing. So even when they sit and commiserate about that time, their personal trauma is never going to be fully understood by each one to get the full picture. And that's what we all hope for, is we want someone to totally know us completely and utterly in every sense of the word, so they feel safe with us, and vice versa. And I can tell you, being a war baby, that I am still working on the trauma of those bombs going off. And I was an infant, but, you know, and they were dropping right up until 45, the V2s, and we nearly got killed twice, which I put in my book. But the bottom line here is that there's so much deep in the deep subconscious that we can't recall unless we pull up a picture. So with our vets, what we've got is they go to sleep, and the same for me. I will go to sleep, and it doesn't happen so much because I've done mounds of work on me, and got rid of it. But even now, I will still have nights where I will wake up with a start and think, was that a bang? And I'm here on my own, you know, and of course it wasn't. The dog's in the room with me, and it was just something that's come through from my consciousness, partly because I've been watching World at War. I thought it was necessary that I did that so that I could face what I knew. And it showed me more than I knew. And it made sense to me in a better way. And I found myself being better to ground. Because, you know, imagine that you're a soldier running on the front, you got to do ABC. You don't know what's happening on the, say, the Japanese front or the French front, or the, you know, you're just there focused on what you're doing, and you experience whatever you experience. So we have to give a shout out now, because 4th of July is coming up, and we're all raring to go, going to see the fireworks, you know, but we need to realize that the fighting way that we've gone out into the world and tried to save everyone, not everyone wants to be saved. And we also have to realize there always has to be controversy, contradictions, these restrictions and limitations, otherwise we'd all be running amok. Exactly. So we're not advocating to, you know, do that, run amok. What we're saying is you need to listen to your teachers. You need to realize they're role models. And the same comes to socializing, which we haven't talked about, where I would want to say that when we socialize, whether we go through a church system or a synagogue or whatever it is, in some way, we're given a lot of restrictions around our faith. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you marry outside of your faith, i.e. my son and his wife, she's Jewish, he's Christian, but they don't make it an issue because the daughter grew up with knowing what both were, and she in her own way is being psychic anyway, like Granny. So, but you know, that's just one case. There are thousands of people out there dealing with their trauma, and they need help, and they need someone to listen to them and someone to help them shift their point of view.
We have a couple of questions up here. Sue says, does that mean people can meditate and go back to and talk to their trauma self? Because that's what she does.
Yes, that's a good point, Sue. Yes, of course we can. I've been doing that for years with myself. But when I get into my deepest part, where I'm actually channeling, talking to spirit guides, and I've done that since I was 4, that I consciously can remember, I'm listening. You have to listen to someone who knows. So whether it's a spirit guide who's telling me I'm running around like an idiot and I shouldn't be, because it's not going to be important and there's something else happening, or whether it's, you know, was my dad lecturing me or my mum screaming, I don't know, whatever it was, there were still lessons, because everything is a part of us, our experience. So yeah, have a good conversation with yourself, but write it down because you'll lose it otherwise.
That up with that means the me now will go back and talk to my past self and work it out as a knowledgeable adult. And so that's what she followed it up with. Now, Scott has also just put in something as well. He said PTSD when I was young when I was young, we were boxed into dyslexic and segregated from others from being different. Then we were told we were smarter in different ways, so confusing as a child. And Sue also just said thank you.
On that comment, I want to say I'm dyslexic, and I was told I was an idiot all the way through my school, and I never got much higher than a B- in an A stream school. So I was an idiot until I got away from it. Then you find out you're not an idiot. So I'm glad he had some help with that. He's younger than me.
And funny enough too, Margaret, that you are now an author. And so it's funny how someone who is dyslexic growing up, even still dyslexic to this very day, can write multiple books. It's the same with,
downloading.
like I said, I was told that, one, I would never have children. Two, I would never be able to fully function in society because I was moderately to severely deaf. I've never taken that on myself, and I've never actually taken any disability upon myself to say that I am deaf or dumb. And not only that, I am also an author too. And this coming from my English teacher, who told me that I failed English.
No, me too. I even failed my O-level, A-level, or whatever it was 3 times because I couldn't write an essay in those days because they told you write about boats and planes. What did I know about boats and planes? I'd never been on either one.
See, I got told a lot of things during high school saying that I was this and I was that, and yet I was doing really well. I was doing advanced subjects, but when push came to shove and I had to get that time that we had to graduate from high school, ladies and gentlemen, I never graduated from high school, but yet here I am as a knowledgeable person. But that's because my drive is completely different to many other people out there. My drive is curiosity and adventure. And so my imagination is always intact.
And that comes from your soul coding. And that's a whole nother story. But basically, we all have a coding from our spirit. And whenever we get down the wrong pathway, our spirit coding kicks in and goes, gotta have a lesson. So we might do a bad thing and get hard work or whatever, but it moves us over from what we were to something else. And then when we start feeding into that, like you have, look where you're at now.
Yeah.
Blow your trumpet, like yourself.
I'm not at all a special person. I never will claim to be a special person. And never will I ever claim to be someone of disability. Never will I ever claim, unless I absolutely have to, obviously. But there are some circumstances. Never will I ever claim that I cannot fulfill my duty as a parent or a friend or a family member. I will never ever claim to say that I can't work on my traumas. I will never claim that I know everything. There is so much adventure, there's so much imagination, there's so much curious stuff to be learnt in a lifetime. Just because I'm just about to turn 35 doesn't mean that I'm like the cream of the crop. I'm the highly academic woman who knows her stuff. I'm going to sit here and tell you, I'm just human. I make my mistakes. I take responsibility for those mistakes. And I will say to you that there is nothing there ever stopping you from ever identifying yourself to such degree that you restrict yourself or here's another word, oppress yourself from ever experiencing life in general.
Or repress. There's so many things that we think we're in charge of self on a conscious level, but subliminally there's a whole bunch of stuff going on as well. Yeah. And you the trick to catch your subliminal stuff is when you daydream. You know, like someone's talking to you and you go, oh, and you're off somewhere else and you realize you have to do something else. You're reminding yourself you don't have to be sitting here listening to this person going on and on and on because you feel you would be happier doing something elsewhere. But, we dismiss it because the logic says, well, I have to sit here and listen to this.
Yeah. because we're always playing mind games with our own mind to get us the trick to do this opposite thing.
That's right. And of course, we've been talking about the past, but my generation, grandparents, and they're still influencing many countries, third world countries particularly, where grandma and grandpa take care of the children while the parents are scrounging around trying to find whatever they can. And I want to yet again say, we Americans have the ways and means to teach them. And we've got online, we could be counseling them. We're ministers, so we do a lot of stuff that is free, okay? And genuine people who need help, we're there for them. So if you like this show and you would like to follow us, Katie will tell you where to go, but it's very important that we as teachers get your support to help us help other people. And it might be you don't feel you need help, but if that's the case, we'd appreciate they would share our shows and tell people about what we're doing here, because ultimately we are looking for more teachers to help build a university online. And I have had this dream my whole life of a worldwide students. It was the way I saw it as a child. Worldwide students were all coming to this great big building to get help. And of course, I was a kid then. Well, today it's different. I'm hoping people will come to us to learn and train to use their psychic ability, their psychology, their psychiatry, their emotional traumas, the therapies they've got. And hey, we're looking for teachers. So how are we doing for time?
We're about 20 minutes.
Oh, good, because I have no idea. I'm relying on you.
I'm appalled, Margaret. I'm not going to tell people where to go because that's just rude. But anyway, I will tell you the location of where you can find what we do, and that is at easypeasysolutions.org. You can go over to the Smartest Education Centre. You can go over to University of Christchurch. You can also go over to askdrmargaret.com. And for those who do listen to the Soma Fusion Media shows, go over to somafusionmedia.com as also the Facebook. We're off on social media. We are everywhere. I know that right now, Margaret is testing out some social media platforms. So please, for those who do follow Margaret, please have some patience with her while she's trying to learn or relearn how to use social media to post some of the stuff, because over the last few years, social media has really changed. And so sometimes it limits the way that we do things, because we have to constantly learn to keep up with things.
Yeah, and that's a very important thing to understand. Someone at the top of the tree that we'll never know has given an order going down through various levels of people working for Google or whatever it is, saying, we have to be very careful. So we will quit allowing people to put this up or that up or do this or do that. And we're changing the style and we do this, we do that. And I'm sitting there going, I don't recognize Facebook anymore. I'm lost. I don't know what to do with it. All these things that are going on right now are likely to be tossed out the window as the younger generation grow up and they become more technical in their sense of their way of perceiving the world. And hopefully by then, all the old dodgy people who are running our country will have revoked themselves into something else, so they're not doing talk themselves out of what they're doing and go off and retire and do something else or whatever, or leave us literally. And by then, I'm hoping that the younger generations will grow up with the real essence of unifying this country. First of all, we have enough here, everything. We have everything here. We don't need to import strawberries and whatever from Israel. Not that I'm trying to cut Israel off, because Israel needs this trade. But when they're argy-bargying backwards and forwards about the price. So I told you this the other week when we were talking. I think there should be, this is my psychic me talking, there should be a standard price for, say, strawberries, as I use that in every country. Okay, but where we're at right now, it's like, okay, it costs $600 to fly that strawberry over here, so we're going to put up the price, and then they get so many imported, and then, hey, we got too many, we have to sell them off at half price. Okay, so why can't we just get them at the standard price from Israel, the same price Israel would charge their customers, and we charge our customers? Now, I know immediately you're going to say, but there's transport involved and all of that. Well,
See,
if we want those strawberries that bad, okay, then we should find a way to unify how we can grow their strawberries here.
That's exactly right, and there's always but nobody wants to take on the costs associated with that too.
No, what I'm getting at is seeds. If we like Japanese strawberries are tiny and so sweet and so tasty. If we had those seeds here, we could have those tiny strawberries. Now, and I wouldn't take away from trade, because we would be bartering in whatever we're sharing, products, rather than, the money. Do you get what I'm talking about?
Then of course the American sense of autonomy is, I'm not going to pay for that because that's been on a ship for last 3 months coming to me, so therefore the fruit or whatever is being given to me or given to the consumer, it's like, well, this is a bad product, it's been sitting out in the sun for too long.
Which is a signpost, we don't need to import that.
Exactly.
Okay. Or another way to look at it is exchange. So, we want their strawberries, they want our canvas bags. We swap. We don't, and that gives the trading people who are taking things backwards and forwards a fee. Not, there's got to be a standard fee that America would pay, Israel would pay, Germany would pay, France would pay, a standard fee.
It will never happen because it's too capitalist.
It will happen in time. It will. Because the only way this world will survive is by sharing.
I may be your age and dead by the time I see that.
Yeah, probably. Then I'll come back, I'll reincarnate. No, seriously, I mean, I'm just talking about it pictorially. We have way too much stuff that we don't need. I mean, I got along very nicely without an artichoke in my life. I didn't even know what an artichoke was till I came here.
I don't think I've eaten too many artichokes either.
Yeah. So you see, we've learned to take things from other countries and expect to get them. If we want something that a country is famous for, then we should be able to do business in a different way. That's all I'm saying, because the way they're doing it and the control from the political things. Another thing I was hearing, it's backing up what I channeled a long time ago, is that for the Americans, everything that the founders wrote, they were telling me it has to be updated. And now I'm hearing that on the news. And that is right, because there's things in there that were written bearing the times, like slavery. They shouldn't even be there anymore, should be off the books. And so I was watching that and I was full of joy, because I want to see someone actually do that. Once we start changing the parts that don't fit society anymore, maybe the younger ones will grow up a bit and they'll start finding a way to integrate our species and not keep blaming and shaming one another all the time because we're different. We're not.
Well, a lot of the millennials right now, they're very charged in trying to provide those innovations and those changes absolutely needed. I think there's a lot of millennials in particular that are leading the charge in terms of the spiritual communities. They're the change makers, they're the innovators, they're the mystics, the creators, the artists. that are coming out right now. And I'm not neglecting the rest of the generations, but it seems to be more prominent with the millennials right now.
Well, the bottom line is when we think of ourselves as a human being, and spiritually as connected to God, most of us up until the end of the Piscean age thought of us as a little blob that God is looking down watching. We finally come to realize that we are all integrated in the oneness, that we are all in ascension and descension all the time, transforming our source of light and darkness and harmonizing everything that we are. And this earth is our staging ground where we come and practice. And so I'm sincerely hoping that there's loads of enlightened people coming down to help the dark people who are floundering around to find some way here on this earth to listen to one another and follow leadership without judgment. And I mean, anytime, I'm just talking generally about this country, and I'm sure you've seen it, anytime I've watched an election, all I hear is downgrading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear any, real love support for anyone. There's just, he's right because he's doing what I want and I hope I'll get. There's no, who is this person? How do I feel with them? And, there's all this imagination that comes in and everything gets screwed up.
Yeah, but nobody wants to deal with vulnerabilities. Who wants to deal with emotions? That's too icky.
Yeah, but okay. Without our emotions, we wouldn't have any logic. We just have to clean up the negative emotions and learn to see, even in a negative scenario, a positive thing. For example, the other day, something happened. I won't bore you with what. And I just went, oh, I was disappointed. And then immediately switched into, that's freed up my time. I could do something else. So I turned it into a positive thing. We have to teach the young ones to do this.
Yeah, but we're so interested on judging ourselves and others in order to get where we need to get. And so that's...
Well, I don't think they're interested in judging themselves so much as circumstances outside of them bring them to think that. Like best friend suddenly yells at you and says, I'm not going to see you anymore. She goes off somewhere else. You're sitting crying. Oh, my best friend I lost. 3 days later, she's back because she's found out you're the better friend than the one she was going to change to. This is kid stuff. And people are still doing this as adults, and it's got to stop. You've got to be able to realize you can't blame and shame and restrict and limit someone simply because they have a different idea from you once in a while.
Yeah. That can go straight into sexuality too. We're so interested in labeling and identifying ourselves. There are certain people that are very outspoken about their identity and their labeling of themselves in terms of sexuality, and then there are other people that label and identify themselves not because necessarily they want to be more outspoken about it. It's because they're looking for a potential mate and they need to find that potential match.
Yeah, and of course, when you bring up, a relationship, whether it's marriage or in work, like people come together as partners and build a business, and then they expand, and then they have different ideas about how that's going on. It's just so much controversy in this world about how we live that labels have become essential. And I know we called this, the top part of the show that, but I really felt that without going into the different scenarios that bring us to label someone simply because there's so much going on, we're so confused. So, okay, stick a label on her, stick a label on him, stick a label on that situation. And then we justify why we're either against or for it. If we take away labels, then we're left with, what's that? What are they doing? Or why are they doing that? And then maybe we'll get some answers.
That's exactly why I just mentioned earlier on about choice. Are we being given too many options, too many choices to make instead of... And by having so many choices, we then continue to identify with multiple choices and multiple labels in order to identify with our personality.
Well, I don't think I'm nothing against choices. For example, if I went to the ice cream store, there's 21 flavors or something. I'm sitting there confused because I don't know which one I want because there's too many to choose from. I think that's the possibilities with a lot of people too. There's so much out there online. Everybody's throwing everything at you, spamming you, or they're genuine followers, but they're still sharing their stuff. And I tell you, I go on my computer and I'm like, oh no, there's 400 and something messages in the last 2 hours, you know. And thank goodness I've got Caroline working with me. It helps me with that. But, you know, if I sit there and do that, I read every one of them because I realize people have a personality and I've lost 3 hours. I can't afford to lose 3 hours. So the other thing is click them all out. And then I'm sitting there thinking, but I may have missed an important one. I better undo it again and make sure I didn't miss an important one, which is more time. And that's a guilt thing again. Because if someone bothers to write to me, the least I can do is to bother to write back and say, hey, I heard you. But I can't because there's so much happening. And that's why, again, I'm saying we need conversations. I'm hoping that we'll have more gatherings on Zoom and whatever's coming up in the future. There's bound to be somebody else who's going to invent something else where we can actually, instead of sending emails out, we can actually say a little picture where you say something like, I'm doing A, interested, contact me. And it begins maybe a rule, I don't know, where you can't spam anymore.
Yeah.
It's got to come because I know, you know, my phone's off now, but I bet you there's about 10 beeps that would have had during the show of people telling me, here there's and they're spammers. I am not claiming my EBB thing, or you're getting a receipt and a prize from Walmart, you know, and it's some kind of iPad or something. I get that 100 times a day from different people sending that out who are spammers. That's got to stop. Those kinds of things are detrimental, in my opinion, to our future. They're con merchants. They're people who are maybe hard ups that have been talked into doing this. They work their buns off. They don't get, anybody's getting wise to it, so they can't con you anymore. What are they? They're wasting their time. They could be studying something and become something that's different. So I want to encourage people to realize if you're doing spamming or conning people, it'll come back and bite you because you'll get bitten. And if you're fed up and you've learned the hard way, get out of it and find yourself some educational class.
Well,
Really.
for those people, they really need to stop judging and having opinions on other people and get up off of their ass and go ahead and do what they need to do to better their life. Because right now there are so many people out there that are just unhappy. They don't know how to keep themselves unhappy. They haven't done the self improvement. They haven't worked on their traumas. They haven't reflected back on their history of their life in order to confront it and live in the present and to work on the future. Because at the end of the day, the present is all we got. Tomorrow's not. Yesterday's already happened, and tomorrow hasn't even happened yet. And so all we can do right now is concentrate on what we need to do as individuals, who then, once we've done the improvement as an individual inside and out, we can then transform a community and work with a community. And once we transform a community, we can go ahead and go into bigger projects and places and spread our love that way.
Yeah, because we are by nature, just like animals, we're social. And without social contact, communication, you know, I'd much sooner, for example, if I'm talking about me as a student, if I was being a student, I would much sooner go on to someone's class and listen to them rather than read a book right now, because it takes time to read a book. However, if I make time to read the book, I savor it. I read slowly.
Exactly.
You know, and people don't. My husband, he would read in monotone aloud. I'd say to him, I can't follow you, because it's like we went down, I'll give you a demonstration. so the character went down the road and he asked someone, do you want this and do you want that? And shall we do this and do we do that? And I'm like, and I really want to hear what he's reading. And I said, you have to read it with expression. And so we went down the road and we saw so-and-so like you're talking. He couldn't do it. He would start off trying and then he would end up reading monotone. And I discussed it with him. I found out that he read nearly a whole sentence line because the books are small, right? He could read all that. So he's absorbed it and speaks it like a computer. And that's intellectual, you know. And he didn't even know he did it till we talked it out. So this is what I'm saying about people talking. We need, in your house, with your family, your members, we need to hear, how do you see things? How do you hear things? How do you feel things? Do you do it mentally? Do you do it emotionally? Do it physically? We need to realize that these people have different parts of themselves working when we're having a conversation, and appreciate that and honor that, even if they're off the wall, because you can't, it's a life, they're alive. And if they're up against you, they're testing you to see if you can keep peaceful, still, and aware of who this person is, where they're coming from. You might want to judge them, try not to, instead try and understand they're limited in their learning, so they can't get what you're saying, and just give yourself permission to say, thank you for sitting with me. I'm leaving now because I have some other things to do. Don't shout, yell, and scream, because it does nothing for anyone.
Exactly. And Margaret, we do, the timekeeper over here is keeping the time. We have about 5 minutes left. So in rounding up, was there anything else that you'd like to say? And before I just promote the rest of our details and we can sign off.
No, I'm just basically saying that if you're really in a hard space where you've got no one to turn to, please don't go down the dark pathway of I want to end my life, because that is the point. And I've been there, so I know what it's like. Only I didn't try and kill myself. Instead, I took pills that were given to me by medicine that killed me. So I died and then I came back. But what I want you to realize is you don't have to physically die. You can have an emotional cry. You can hit the wall. You can hug a tree. You can do whatever it takes to let that misery out, so that you can find the core of yourself to bloom. And you have to pour water on it, which means pour positive emotions on it. I can do this. I can go beyond this boundary. I can become something so much more. And though I don't see it, I'll take that first step towards it. Took a lot of courage on my part, but I did it. Here I am. That's my last word.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
You're welcome. But no, for those who are out there, please, we need to embrace our nature, but realize that we're not to be defined by it. So we have the ability to be who we are, but it's an ongoing process, and certainly not defined by any labels or any identities. And so let's not use them in final. Don't use them to justify yourself, just use them to understand yourself, and turn each discovery into positive catalysts for understanding one another and developing as human beings. And with that said, I'm going to let you know that you can catch us again next Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 4 p.m. Arizona time or Pacific time. You can go over to our websites. You can find Margaret's books at somafusionmedia.com, also up on Amazon. You can also go over to soundcloud.com/Dr. Margaret Speaks, and you can find all of Margaret's radio archive. There is over 150 archives over there now. If you go over to the Soma Fusion Mind, Body and Soul YouTube channel, I would suggest for you to go sign up and subscribe, or like and subscribe and share out the videos that we do post up there. We do almost live videos almost every single day of the week. But if you are interested in therapy or counseling or even classes, you can go over to these websites: samarascenter.com, easypeasysolutions.com, the Samaras Education Center.com, the Universal Christchurch.com, and askdrmargaret.com as well. And of course, you can find me at soma-fusion.com as well. I've got a couple of new websites coming out, so please keep in mind that we will be announcing those up on social media. We are on multiple platforms. You can't ever not find us. If you can't find us, just Google our names, because we are there, if it's easier for you. But also, I would just want to mention too that I am also raising money as well for the Katie Kamara Healing Center in Rakai, Uganda. If you would like to help out and make a contribution to the Healing Center, in which we are going to be providing medical services, we are going to be providing a small birthing center, holistic healthcare and education to approximately serve 1,000 rural women in Rakai, Uganda. And so it's currently being built to enable, sustain and empower a thriving rural community of many women and children who lack the basic resources, skills and education to have the best quality life a human can have now and for future generations to come. So if you would like to share and donate, you can go over to Facebook on Soma Fusion Media. The Facebook page is up there as a pinned post right at the top, or if you are following a follower of me, you can also see that same post right at the top of my feed, and you will see the fundly.com website link. It is fundly.com/Katie-Kamara-Healing-Center, and center in this case is R-E, not E-R, the American spelling. So please, when you are looking it up, it is Katie Kamara Healing Center, center with an R-E, okay? And so with that said, I will bid you farewell, and we'll see you next Saturday, bright and early, and look out for what we're going to be talking about next week. But what I want to do is give you a big shout out. Happy 4th of July. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next week, or we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening. I do appreciate that, and do share, please. The more people we can reach, the more we can bring love to the world.
Absolutely. With that said, happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July. Have a nice time. Bye.